My name is John Mattox. I am with CEB, Metrics That Matter. Thank you for being here today for this session. We're going to talk about learning analytics and in particular, measurement innovations to support talent development. So I'm curious, how does learning analytics drive competitive advantage? Well, I know the answer to this. Hopefully you're curious about this too. And what you're seeing here on screen is a simple logic model. And you'll see the circle on the left-hand side shows a learning event, and that leads to competency development. Pretty logical, right? And what that should lead to for your organization is individual performance development and organizational development and improvement as well. And when you get the combination of both of those, you'll also achieve your business goals. Simple logic model, and hopefully this resonates with you. So some of the questions that come out of this are things like, does training lead to improved performance? Does improved performance lead to the achievement of business goals? And does training help develop proprietary products, systems, services, etc.? And does that lead to increased profitability? Now, if you're in the not-for-profit sector or government, think about achieving your mission rather than profitability. Well, how do we know whether we're actually achieving these things? So what I'm going to hopefully convey in the next few minutes here is that the only way that we can really know is if we apply learning analytics. We need to measure, we need to monitor, and we need to manage. And if you're doing those things, you should know whether your training cycles are improving individual performance and organizational performance. So, quick question for you as an audience. Don't expect any direct feedback on this one, but think about this for just a second. What is learning analytics to you? What's it mean? Maybe jot some notes, think about what it means to you. But let me share this. This is a definition that we have that's in the book, and it's a little long, and it may not fit perfectly for you and your organization, but it's a starting point. So let's start the dialogue here. So learning analytics is the science and art of gathering, processing, interpreting, and reporting data. And it's not just any data. It's data related to efficiency, data related to effectiveness, and data related to business impact of development programs that are designed to improve individual performance and organizational performance. Yes, it's a mouthful, but it's a good starting point, right? And hopefully comprehensive enough that you can find something in there that would apply well to your organization. Now, one of the key questions that gets asked frequently of L&D leaders from business leaders is, how do you demonstrate impact for the programs that you're running? And there are many, many different ways of doing this, but the two simple things I'd like you to take away today are two methods that you're seeing here. One, impact studies. You might call these time motion studies, experimental designs, quasi-experimental designs. So that's one side of it. Lots of rigor, and they really do a good job at determining cause and effect. They provide return on investment information, and it helps link the training programs to the actual impact for the organization. The drawback here, though, is that they're costly. It takes a lot of time and takes a lot of resources, too. So instead of taking a quick sample of information and understanding whether things are directionally correct, if you're doing an impact study, it's going to take a lot of time, money, and energy to achieve. Drawbacks, right? The other way of doing this is to look for a scalable evaluation system. Now, as someone from Corporate Executive Board, Metrics That Matter, yes, we're offering Metrics That Matter here as that leading evaluation system. You might use your learning management system, you might use your HRIS, you might use another system, but that system, we would argue, has to do more than just send out surveys and collect data. There's a lot behind it, and if you look back to the definition that we just discussed, it's about gathering, processing, analyzing, and reporting, and that system has to do all of those things in order for it to be valuable for you. The drawback on something like this, while it's scalable, it reaches a wide variety of people about different courses they've taken, it can be knocked for self-reported data, and it's one of those things where you're not exactly getting to cause and effect, but you are getting to things about, are people learning? Can they apply? Will it improve their job performance? And will it help the organization? And we're relying on the wisdom of crowds and sourcing information from people who actually attended training to know whether training's actually valuable. So these are the two most common ways of evaluating for impact. There are many, many others, but these two buckets tend to consume or subsume almost every other method. I'm going to share with you a quick case study. This was a client of ours, Metrics That Matter. It's a very mature learning organization, and they have 3 to 4 analytics people in-house. So not only do they have a mature learning organization, a mature measurement group as well. And their business need was they're collecting lots of information using Metrics That Matter about reaction, learning, application, performance improvement, organizational improvement, but they really wanted to get a little bit deeper. They wanted some guidance from the data itself. And the thing that they were looking for, they wanted to know what aspects of training were actually driving improved performance. And not only did they want what was driving improved performance, they wanted recommendations for when, if performance is not good, if it's underscoring a benchmark, how do they then go back in and improve that course so it becomes better? So that's the path we're going to go on here. And it starts with Metrics That Matter's Smart Sheets. Many of you may know what a smile sheet is. A smile sheet typically is a level 1 evaluation, Kirkpatrick, Phillips, just getting reactions from the learners. We call ours Smart Sheets because we're not just getting reactions, we are getting level 1 through ROI or ROE, return on expectations. And in so doing, we're getting a lot more information than just reaction. So if you use the Smart Sheets, which this client did, and they gathered massive amounts of data, we're then able to apply analytics. And what we did was use multiple linear regression. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's just an advanced statistical technique that looks at what are the factors that come together and really lead to what's driving an outcome. And remember, the outcome we're looking for here is improved performance. So let's take a look at what we found. So on the left-hand side, you see 3 factors in the light blue boxes. On the right-hand side, in that dark blue box, you see level 4. This is the post-event rating for training will improve my job performance. So it wasn't just these 3 factors on the left-hand side that we looked at. We looked at all the responses to all the questions on the post-event survey, the one that's delivered immediately after training. There are 25, 26 questions in there. And we use multiple linear regression that looks at all of those simultaneously and finds out which items relate most to our outcome. And it turns out the 3 best predictors of training will improve my job performance are the 3 on the left-hand side. And ignore for a minute the R squares and the beta values of 0.46 and 0.29. The important part here is that we've taken those 25 or 26 questions and winnowed them down to 3, the 3 most important, the 3 that make training really effective for improving performance. And for those of you who do know multiple linear regression and how to use that and like stats, we've included the measures at the bottom so you can plot out the regression line for yourself if you want to do that. Now, one of the other things that the client asked for was, well, how do we compare? How do we know whether our course is doing well or not? Well, within Metrics That Matter, we have benchmarks. And you'll see on this table, we have benchmark value and the course scores. And we've taken 3 examples here. So learning effectiveness, job impact, and the instructor. So the questions are listed in the table there as well. And you see that the benchmark values are right next to the course scores. And in this example, our course scores are higher for learning effectiveness and for the instructor, but not for job impact. So what this means is that the course is underperforming the benchmark. This should be a red flag for this learning group to say, we need to go back in there and figure out what's wrong with this. They can go back to the individual evaluations and say, oh, let's figure out what's underperforming here. And then when we do, we can improve that aspect of the course. One of the things the client asked us to do is that when we identify job impact or instructor or learning effectiveness, any of these factors that's underperforming, they can go back and look at a table that we created for them, actually a document that contains recommendations for improvement. So let's take a look at that real quick. So again, we're only looking at the left-hand side here. Course objectives, pace for the course, or instructor effectiveness. Imagine that this document is 5-6 pages long, and that the left-hand column relates to any of the given questions that are on the evaluation form. So for a second, let's assume that the pace of the course was off. It was underperforming benchmarks, and the learning and development team wanted to figure out, well, how do we fix that aspect of the program? Well, they would come to this section, look at pace of the course, and we have explanations there. I won't read these to you, but you could read them for yourself. But this becomes the tool that they can use to say, let's go fix the course in the areas where it's underperforming. Now, one of the neat, interesting, what I consider cool and sexy features of Metrics That Matter is that we've built this into the tool now so that we're not using multiple linear regression, but we are using analytics to say, what's your scrap learning rate? And what are the factors that are driving scrap? So if you can figure out what your scrap rate is, and if your scrap rate is too high, the system will actually create recommendations for you saying, do these things or focus on these areas because these are the things that are driving scrap for your organization. Now, if you have interest in that and scrap learning as well as what we're calling instant insight, those recommendations that come straight from the system, contact us. We'd love to talk to you about that. We just don't have enough time here to talk about it today, but we'd be happy to talk with you about it in the future. So just to summarize, what's the so what or the call to action here for you? First of all, measure. Measure anything and everything you can, but measure smartly. Again, using our smart sheets if you can. Use technologies like Metrics That Matter or your LMS or your HRIS to gain efficiencies. You don't want someone spending all of their time handing out evaluations, gathering them, key punching them. Technology systems make the efficiencies much more affordable for you. It's amazing what you can achieve with the systems. Use the technologies not just for efficiency, but also for insight. If you can program in-system analytics so that your data team doesn't have to pull things out of the system, you can just let the analytics happen within the system and it generates reports or benchmarks, all the better. And then lastly, if you have a data team or you can call up a local statistician, apply advanced analytics like we saw from the case study where you look at multiple linear regression and see what's driving a certain outcome, like how do we improve job performance or how do we improve knowledge gain. Whatever it might be, use those advanced statistics because using that will unlock information for you. And then lastly, not the admonition, but our advice for you. Measure, monitor, and manage, and you will find that the events that you're hosting, the talent development programs that you have, if you measure, monitor, and manage, they will get better because you'll fix them in that continuous improvement cycle. And looking back to probably that first or second slide that we had, if you're continuously improving your training in your talent development programs, you're going to help individual employees achieve their goals, improve their performance, and eventually improve the performance for your organization. Thank you very much.